this. I never saw this particular guy kill anybody, but I know that he did. And he used to babysit with my young son, who loved it. Called him Uncle Mort. But, no, it's a world, I can't tell you that I understand that, any of that. I can't tell you that I understand this, or that there's some ultimate message to it, or that, you know, it's all wrapped up in a neat package, because every film that I make is an exploration. That's the fun of it. It's an exploration. It's not something I know about when I go into it. And we find the characters, and I find the film with the film editor in the cutting room. My film editor's here tonight, and we're going to bring him up. That the film in the editing room speaks to you, and you have to listen to it. While you're editing the film, this happened to me on French Connection especially. I had shot 9 scenes. 9 scenes that later in the cutting room just became scaffolding. They were all like character scenes, and they stopped the flow of the action. And while we were in the cutting room, the film kept saying, no, I am not this. I'm not this kind of film. And so it was almost that palpable, where I look at these scenes that I shot, and it was a low-budget picture, but I shot these scenes, and they simply didn't belong in this movie. So we cut them out. And because the film does speak to you and tells you what it is and what it's not. And we discovered a lot of that here.
You talked about this, then. Let me ask you about The Exorcist, which was released in '99 with added scenes. What was it that you felt about those scenes that they demanded inclusion in the new version of the film?
Well, I'm first going to answer that with a parrot. Okay. And you'll know why. And then I'll give you the specifics. Are you tired, Elvis?
No.
Can I get you a coffee or something?
I'm just waiting for a ride.
So, he's waiting for his ride? Oh. My friend Sammy Kahn was a great lyricist, a great songwriter. Wrote many of Sinatra's hits, and Dean Martin, Ella Fitzgerald. And he was a great lyricist. He worked with Jimmy Van Heusen, he worked with other composers. And he was often asked, as similar to what you asked me, he was often asked, what comes first, the music or the lyrics? And he always answered, the phone call. Somebody called up and said, we need a song to put on Sinatra's album, or we need something for this Broadway show.
It's such a story, I can't.
No, but that's the answer to your question. Why did we redo the extra? Because we had a phone call from Warner Brothers and said, listen, if there's any extra footage that you left out in 1973, if you can find it and integrate it back into the picture, we'll re-release the movie in theaters, which they did. And it was, you know, phenomenally successful in theaters again, and then on Blu-ray and DVD. And the 40th anniversary Blu-ray is coming out next year. And that's because of Warner Brothers. That, to me, they are just the greatest. Jeff Baker, Ronnie Sass, the whole...
Why they're here tonight?
Are they?
Jeff and Ronnie, please stand up.
Jeff? Ronnie? Stand up. Stand up, please. Hi, Jeff. I love you. I have to tell you, they love film. They believe in the legacy of Warner Brothers and of the American motion picture and a lot of European film. They just did the new Blu-ray version of Citizen Kane, which is the most beautiful version I've ever seen of Citizen Kane. They treated it with tender, loving care, as they do all their pictures, and that's going to become the new Cinematheque, home video. You know, because 35
Please don't
millimeter.
say that here.
I'm sorry, but the point is, people now have good systems at home. A disc is, you know, this big around, and the sound's good, the picture's good, all of that stuff, and they've got everything on it.
Again, please don't say that.
Well, if you can't handle the truth, you know.
That's me, you're talking to me.
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
Just keep what little structure there is in this conversation.
Yeah, structure.
Start talking about music. And I actually asked you this question last week, so I always want to know. I don't know how many people here see you cruising, but I think it's an astonishing piece of work. And first of all, weirdly, it starts off, there's no, the original release of Cruising, there's no studio video, it's a dead start.
Yeah.
Why was that?
I don't believe you need to put credits at the front of a movie unless they're contractual, you know? And
Those are the Warner Bros. People leaving now?
look, when you go to a movie, right? When you go in, you buy a ticket, you go in, you know the movie you're going to see, right? You don't just wander in off the street. And say, geez, I wonder what the deep throat, what the hell is that?
Tell me about Deep Throat, Billy. Please tell me about Deep Throat.
What do you want to know? No, everybody here, like you know what film you're going to see tonight, right?
Give it
Nobody wandered in off the street, right? I mean, and that's why I don't think you need any credits. There are a few credits on the front of this, because now, I wanted to put Tracy Lett's name on the front of this picture, and I did. It was not contractual. But in order to do that, I had to put my own name on because of the Directors Guild. But that's all that's up there. The cast names aren't up there. It's just, and the title of the film is up there. But, you know, on reflection, I should pull the title of the film off. Because people know what they're watching.
I agree with you. I don't know if anybody's ever seen this before, but when you saw Cruising, the original release, the theater went dark and the movie started. There's a tugboat going into the water. That's how the movie starts. There's no title. You could, what the?
Did you know what you were going to see?
Not really, no.
And you know the track was by Bar Phillips, a great jazz player.
Well, you got a bunch of great jazz players. You got that great Val Turner stuff in there,
Yeah.
but there's a piece of music that you guys know the movie, and it's not credited in the film, by the way. And what's interesting is that it was used the Master Commander from Cruising. This Boccherini bass, which is a piece of chamber music, quartet that's playing, and I wondered why that piece of music was in the film. You told me last week.
Yeah, well, that piece of music, which is Luigi Boccherini's string quartet, which is quite beautiful and very haunting. Al Pacino was listening to it, and one day he gave it to me. He said, listen, not to use in the film, he just, listen to this, I think it's beautiful. And it was on a 33 1/3 LP, and I listened to it and I thought it was great. And I used it in the film because it's kind of a sweet, simple, vaguely disturbing piece.
It's Italian street music.
It's Italian sweet music, absolutely. But it was different, and I thought it was great then.
But there's also other ways. I mean, you got the Germs on there, which is very different than the kind of music those guys would have listened. They would have listened to Donna Summers and those back in the day. So you chose to make music, make a statement in that film.
Well, I was listening to that kind of music. It was, you know, 1970s garage band music. And they were playing in clubs around here. The Germs, among others. And
Black Flag, yeah.
Black Flag. But Darby Crash, who was the lead singer, he had a major crash when he was in his 20s. He passed away. But the rock scene used to be fantastic here. And I like that music. It's sort of I've been more influenced by music than by any film. The most influential figures in my life, my artistic life, are Miles Davis and like Igor Stravinsky and Bill Evans and Gil Evans and Sonny Rollins.
There's almost no jazz in your movies these days. That's interesting.
Well, there's some jazz in Sorcerer.
But not a lot.
No, not a lot. But I don't know why that is, but that's what I still listen to. All that stuff. Not just 60s or 70s jazz, but all kinds of stuff. A new album just came out. I'm so anxious to get home and listen to it again. It's a new, never before released album by Bill Evans at the Village Gate. And it's a 2-album. You know who Bill Evans is?
Yeah.
Those of you who don't, the exits are over there.
Follow the others out.
And so I still listen to everything. And you know, I direct operas, which is in quite a different world.
So there's also kind of an energy to opera too that I think you find really attractive, because there's always so much velocity in your films, and opera follows that kind of same emotional track too. The stakes are so high. It's kind of natural to an opera, isn't it?
It is natural, but it was an accident, Elvis. Because, Zubin Mehta, who's been a good friend of my wife's and mine for many years, one day we were having dinner with him at his house. And out of the blue, he said to me, this was in 1996, he said, why don't you do an opera with me? And he was the permanent conductor at many opera companies, the Florence Opera and Valencia, and he's the conductor for life of the Israel Philharmonic, and he guest conducts everywhere. He said, why don't you direct an opera for me? And I said, gee, Zubin, I've never seen an opera. And he said, oh, come on. He said, we've talked about opera music, because we just used to talk about music and movies and what was going on in the world, but we try to avoid that. But and he said, you must know. I said, well, I've listened to opera, but I've never seen the staging. He said, no, I think you'd be very good. And he went out of the room and he got his diary, which was about 7 inches thick, and it had his bookings for the next 7 years. And he leafed through it and he said, okay, what opera would you do if you had the chance? And in order to put him off, really, I said, well, I would do Alban Berg's Wozzeck. Yeah, and Wozzeck, for those of you from Rio Lindo, California, Wozzeck is an atonal opera. It's very dark. It's an assault on the senses, and it was to be done in Italy, where they're not crazy about German opera. You know, in Italy they have Verdi and Puccini and Rossini and, you know, a slew of other wonderful Italian composers, and they don't really like Wagner or the great German operas that much. Wozzeck is atonal. It's 12-tone music. It's called serial music.
I mean, most of the German operas are.
Yeah, but this was an opera from the turn of the 20th century to 1913. It wasn't the great century for opera. That's the 19th and 18th centuries. But, so he said, okay, I'll do Wozzeck with you in 2 years if you commit to it now. And I, what? And my wife said, oh, go ahead, it'll be fun. We'll live in Florence. And so I committed to it. And I studied German for over a year. I read everything I could about the origins of this opera and Alban Berg, the composer. And it came from a play by George Buchner, who is probably best known for his play Danton's Death. But Buchner was about 25, 26 years old. He was a practicing lawyer, and he used to write these plays on the side. And he died suddenly at a very early age, in his 20s. And these plays were left on his desk, unfinished. And the executors of his estate came in and sorted them out. And some 75 years after Buchner's death, Alban Berg, a young composer who studied with Schoenberg, saw the play. 75 years after Buchner's death, and he went right home and wrote the opera, using the play as the libretto. and it's a masterpiece. It's really